Slept On Cinema is sponsored by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know someone who's struggling with shoe tying for any reason, Training Ties is the perfect solution.
Even if they only charged a token, it would be too much.
Goes nowhere fast.
Snipes and Harrelson are still good together, but the screenplay stinks.
A big, noisy headache of a movie.
A very expensive movie with a very stupid plot.
Wesley and Woody's chemistry from White Men Can't Jump doesn't translate in this awful cash-in action flick.
There are no characters in this film, just caricatures.
Hardly worth the 4-year wait.
Welcome to this week's episode of Slept On Cinema. I'm your host, Stan Steamer.
And I'm Grove Street.
And this week we are getting into the 1995 action classic Money Train. It's part 2 of our Wesley Snipes double feature. And like the last week, this movie is awesome.
Action classic heist movie?
Yeah, I'd throw heist in there for sure. As always, our podcast is structured so that the first half of the podcast is spoiler free. We talk about some things to look for in the movie, take a break, go watch the movie, come back, and go through what we just went through together. Our podcast only features movies that are at or below 50% on Rotten Tomatoes for both audiences and critics. Again, shocked that this movie and last week's movie qualify, but that's good for us.
Good for us. Want to get into the rotten premise?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Rotten premise. Charlie is a New York City transit cop with a mountain of gambling debts, and John is his responsible and frequently exasperated foster brother. They compete amicably for the affections of fellow officer Grace, but things become more serious when Charlie decides to rob the money train that carries the transit authority's daily proceeds. John must decide whether to prevent Charlie's crime or to join in on the heist. Critics, 22%. Audience, a lowly 29%.
Bonkers. Just bonkers.
Yep.
So the movie came out November 22nd, 1995. It was a Thanksgiving release, which is a big weekend for blockbuster action movies. And it did all right. It came in number 4, but it had some serious competition ahead of it. Toy Story, opening weekend for Toy Story. There's literally nothing you could do against that. That's one of the most successful movies of all time. Number 2 was the second week of GoldenEye, which I think was the first great Bond movie in a long time. So that makes total sense. Mm-hmm. And then number 3 was Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls. So dynamite sequel at Jim Carrey at his absolute most Jim Carrey-ness. I'm not going to topple that. So it came in 4th. I feel like it kind of came in first.
I do too, because what are you going to do against those 3? Those were behemoths from the 90s. There's nothing you can do. To this day, Toy Story still is a movie that you just say around kids and they're going to want to put it on. Yep. Even parents too. So what are you going to do?
And it beat out Casino. It was the first week of Casino, which is also an all-timer. So
wow. I think that won some awards.
No joke. Overall, it made $77.2 million worldwide and a budget of 68. So people still made money, I think. I don't really know how these things get calculated, but that sounds like a profit to me.
Took a little while, but I think they got to the profit eventually.
Yeah, right. Exactly. And one thing I love about this movie is that it's sort of based in reality. This is modeled after a real New York City MTA money train. This was a real thing. It started right when the subway system opened in 1904, and the real money trains were not like what they look like in this movie. They were, you'll see in the film, it's this badass armored vehicle that travels along the rails. The real money trains were not like these sleek armored cars. They were just made to look like regular maintenance trains so that people wouldn't know that this was the train full of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars. So and their main deterrent was really just secrecy. Made it look like a regular maintenance train. They would operate on these weird and shifting schedules so that there was no predictability about when the train was going to come to any particular station. So it made it really difficult to rob. It did have barred windows, just like in the movie, but that just makes sense. But otherwise, it was sort of still structured like it was in the film. There were 2 cars. There was one that had the employee lockers for the folks that were riding the train, then one that held all the collections from the different stations. And there was no actual reports of a successful armed robbery of the money train in real life. But there were a number of successful robberies of train stations sort of right before the money train was going to show up. That was sort of the time when the token offices had the most cash. And there was a period in the 1920s when there was a suspected mole inside the sort of money train office that was tipping people off as to when these token offices were going to have the most amount of cash. And there was a series of about 10 different robberies in the mid 20s where people got away with a hefty haul of cash. The money train, the real money train, ended up being retired in 2005. They never said how much the money train actually carried on it on any given trip. But in 1993, which was the year before the Metro card started, so there was still a lot of more cash being processed in these stations. The overall fares just for that year was $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion over the course of a year. That's probably some pretty serious change.
And in this movie, on New Year's Eve, with everyone going to Times Square, it's probably a good haul.
Yep. So I love that. It's another one of these things where inspiration can come from any minor little detail. They just ripped this out of daily life and made this awesome film out of it.
Oh, good. That budget number is pretty high.
Yeah.
I think I had read that they built the train and the train station, and that's where a lot of the money went to. I know Woody and Wesley both caught $5.5 million, but that's only 11 of that 60 something.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big budget for a buddy cop action movie.
Yeah, it is a big budget, and it's the action sequences are awesome, and you could tell they sort of just they had money to spare. Some of the scenes are well, how can we make this scene more badass? I don't know, let's light someone on fire.
Going back and watching a movie from the 90s, it's so it's crazy that it holds up more than movies from the 2000s or even 2010s early, where it's not relying on CGI, right? They're actually doing a lot of this stuff and using, of course, miniatures and when necessary, but with the upscale HD, we just watched it a couple times this last week, and it just looks like it was just made. It's so
it holds
cool
up
movies
really well.
When you don't try to go beyond your means or whatever in the time frame, then it seems to hold up a lot better when you just use real life trains or
yeah, absolutely. That kind of reminded me of Dante's Peak had that same thing where they had so much of the special effects were practical effects that as a result, you're still able to watch it 20 years later, 30 years later, and it doesn't miss anything.
Yeah, that part's pretty great. Well, I'm excited for this, but let's get to Bolo.
Let's do it. I don't have a ton, but I feel like there are just some really great ones.
All right, let's
go.
go.
Very concentrated this week.
I'll go first then, since you have less. Bolo, this is a rare Christmas, but also / New Year's movie. Not many New Year's movies.
It is, and it's our second one of these, right? Because we had Entrapment was also the sort of the same time period. So if you're ever looking for that New Year's Eve movie, that could be a great double feature.
Great double feature.
I'm going to say Bolo right off the bat, a Peking duck.
And I'll piggyback what you said before. Bolo Entrapment.
That's great. I'm going to go, and this is a multi-part Bolo, but I'm going to go Bolo prestige TV stars before they really hit it big on TV. And this just blew my mind, all the people that you can see on this. So you got Big Pussy from The Sopranos, Dynamite character, Dynamite show. You also get Janice Soprano. She's here.
Oh, yep.
You get D'Angelo Barksdale from The Wire. He makes a great appearance. And then you get Hank Schrader from Breaking Bad. All before they were big-time TV stars, all making great appearances here in Money Train.
Yeah, don't forget, he's probably not on Prestige TV, but Radio Raheem, who also got stabbed through the hand by Wesley Snipes in New Jack City.
Yep. I feel like him, what's his name? Bill Nunn.
Oh, yeah.
He pops up in some all-time classic roles. He has a kind of small role here, but it's great to see him.
He does well in that small role. Bolo Snot Rocket.
Ooh, just ripped that right off my board. I'm going to go Bolo Pistachios. It's a great nut and a hobby, really, I think.
Bolo Excessive Force.
Enough to go around. I'm going to say Bolo a model train.
Rip that one right out of mine. That was good. Bolo, cops drinking on the job.
Nice. I'm going to go Bolo, a shirtless Snipes.
Oh, all right. Bolo, a whispered I love you.
Ooh, nice. And this is my last one. I'm just going to go Bolo, a Converse All-Stars. Never go out of style.
Never go out of style. Well, I have a lot. Maybe I'll just rattle these off here.
Yeah, rip them off.
Bolo, great punch sound effects. Bolo, drunk acting. See, Bolo, racism. Bolo, drinks hurting the cut on someone's lip. Bolo, shoot the glass. Bolo, this is just watch out. Bolo, women getting hit. There's a lot of that in this movie. Bolo, terrible drunk bar patron banter. I think you know the scene. Bolo, great jackets. These are, like, I took a trip to New York a number of years ago, and my favorite part looking back on it is I had a great jacket. Like, when it's cold in Christmas around New York, like in New York, and you're around there around New Year's, and you just have the great, like, gloves and the jacket and the scarf, and you're just warm and content. Wesley and Woody have some great jackets in this movie.
Yeah, they're geared up for sure.
Geared up. Bolo, a warning shot. And let's see. Bolo, Jaeger.
Nice.
Yeah. And one more. Bolo, standing too close to the train tracks. Yeah, that was a lot. That movie's a lot of fun. You're going to really enjoy this. So let's. Mine is so simple for our last one before the break. But what drink to pair with the movie?
Mine, I'm almost willing to say it could not be much more simpler than what I have. I'm just saying a bottle of Bud Heavy.
Oh, all right. Well, we're saying basically the same thing. I said I said a pitcher of light domestic beer or domestic beer, like a Bud Heavy. Yeah, just a pitcher though. Like throughout the movie, you're gonna refill your drink a bunch of times. If you're there with a couple people, even better. The pitcher makes more sense. But if not, you can use the pitcher for yourself.
Yeah, maybe get yourself a bottle, throw perhaps a flower in it, perhaps.
Yep.
And then drink the pitcher by yourself, or maybe with some friends.
The alcohol helps preserve the flower.
It does help preserve it, as we all now know.
All right, can't wait. Let's get to the movie, and we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy.
Every day in New York City.
We got a police action, sir. 6 line south of Wall Street.
It's the job of the transit cop.
Come on, Grandma.
Stay. To risk his life and keep peace.
How you guys doing? Nice to meet you.
Damn, this job is looking up.
They're not just partners, they're family.
He's a great guy.
Yeah.
They're about to discover
They're stopping trains. I want to know why.
So we got cops on the tracks down there.
Nothing stops the money train.
the system cares more about the train that carries its money than it does about its cops.
You mess with my train, and I'll kill you.
But why take the heat when you can take the train?
We gotta do this. We can do this. No. We're gonna do it. No. We're gonna do it.
This Thanksgiving, the train hits your station. Money Train.
With you and me together, man, what can stop us?
Slept On Cinema is brought to you by Training Ties, the ultimate shoe tying tool. If you know anyone who's struggling with shoe tying, Training Ties is the perfect solution. Or if you know anyone who just doesn't like tying their shoes, Training Ties keeps shoes tied all day long. Say no to Velcro and yes to independence with Training Ties.
Welcome back.
A lot of fun, a lot of great lines. Very quotable movie.
The dialogue in this film was amazing. Right off the bat, I was like, whoa, this is legit.
I found myself writing down quotes the majority of the, like, instead of like noticing things for the bolo or for our notes, I just wrote down lines from the movie. It was just that kind of movie that just had awesome lines. And I think a lot of it was unscripted. The stuff between Wesley and Woody Harrelson, they were saying how a lot of it is just them just kind of going back and forth, which is so cool.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I have to believe that some of the Robert Blake stuff he came up with himself, but we'll get to that later on.
Yeah, I think that there's no way. Like that, it just seems so natural coming out of his mouth that all of the
character actor with his hatred.
Yeah. All right, should we get to the draft?
Let's do it.
All right. I had on my draft board, I did actually have dialogue, but I feel like we've already touched on that, so I'm going to push it to the side because there's a lot of other things that are worthy of being drafted here. I'm going to go with my number one overall, just the chemistry between the actors. Like
That's mine. Yep.
the Woody Harrelson, Wesley Snipes chemistry, I think goes down as probably some of the best on-screen chemistry I've ever seen amongst two actors in any film ever. It's like clear that they are just having such a great time making this. They really seem like they're brothers. They know how to needle each other. They know how to just interact with each other in such a realistic way that it's almost like it doesn't feel like they're acting. It feels like this is just two guys hanging out on screen.
And I think that's what it was a lot of times. I mean, this doesn't start at White Man Can't Jump. This starts in Wildcats in 1986, years before White Man Can't Jump, and they became buddies on that set. So it just carries through. I think a lot of the movies just like, all right, we're going to put Woody and Wesley in front of each other and get them mad and then have them say things to each other. And that's it. And that's all it takes. But they do such a great job. It's so great that they cast them as brothers because they definitely come off like that where they just fight and fight and fight.
Oh, yeah.
If there's any other like excessive level threat, they forget about what they're talking about or fighting about, and they band together and they work it out together. Like it's always like there's a ceiling to how much they can get mad at each other when the world is bigger than that. They'll always come back together. So many times they're in this movie, they're in this heated argument or have these problems with each other, and then something else bigger happens. And like, all right, we'll put that aside and we'll get to this now.
Yeah,
it's just such a great pairing. I'm surprised we didn't get more of these two.
Right? Like it feels like this kind of felt like we should have gotten one a year for like 15 or 20 years.
It should have been overdone. I don't think it was overdone.
Yeah, right. I wish I could say like, oh, another Woody Harrelson, Wesley Snipes movie. I wish I could say that, but I can't. Yeah,
I wish we reached that point as well. I think that's sometimes we don't have 1As or obvious number one picks, but that's got to be it. That's why the critic was talking about a 4-year wait. Like everyone was waiting for this because it was such a cool dynamic.
Oh yeah,
and it's not often. Oftentimes, I don't know. Despite the reviews, I felt the same way as I did like White Man Can't Jump. Like I really enjoyed them going at it with each other. Oh, I feel like this is one of these drafts where there's one obvious choice, like basketball player. There's like a LeBron, and this is everyone else. But I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with their famous little. I guess I'll kind of piggyback on them, but you're not gonna hit him. Why not? Because I'm gonna hit him, or because we're gonna hit him. Like they didn't use it too much. They both had their trade-off of because I'm going to hit him, or even Jennifer Lopez, I think, hit someone at one point with that. And then at the end, they used that line together to knock Robert Blake back like 15 feet with their.
Oh, yeah.
But that line just shows their chemistry because it comes out of nowhere. They're in the middle of like these heated arguments, but they're still centered enough to be able to be in that same place together.
Mm-hmm. That's a great pick. Yeah, I mean, I think you wonder again how much of that was scripted and how much of that was just like them being like that just comes out because that's just like how they are together.
Right. I think that's what it was. We have to bottle this and make this a big part of the movie.
That's a great pick.
So that's my one pick. And I can't quite tell if I'm taking this from you. If I am, I'm excited I am. If not, I'm surprised. But the big train board in The Office.
Ooh, love it.
Just seeing all the dots in that huge train. He's got this like open office with the glass and you can just see the huge train board. He just stares at it all day. I just thought that train board was amazing.
I love that train board. I also love that that's one of these things that you could put that in like 8 different decades and it probably looks exactly the same. Like that, you could be in 1920 and like I bet that looks like that. And then you could put it like now. Like you walk into the MTA, it probably looks just like that. It's
How
just
can
like
you improve on that? I see it. I see every stop has its light. It's got different colors for different meanings. What more improvement is there?
Yeah, I love that. It's great switches, great lights going on. It's beautiful.
Yeah, so I'll definitely take the train big board.
That's an amazing pick. I love that. My second pick, I'm going to go with the absolutely fantastic selection of hats in this film.
So good.
It's unbelievable. It's like every time, and it's mostly Wesley, but it's not just him. There's just absolutely amazing hats. Every time someone's on screen, they're wearing just an awesome hat. Like I was watching this with my wife, and she came in. She didn't see the whole thing, but she came in, I don't know, maybe a third of the way into the movie. And she's like, "Oh, Wesley's hat is like so cool." And I was like, Yeah, and you have no idea. That's like the fifth cool hat he's worn so far. And that's like not even the best one. But when you're watching this again next time, just keep an eye on the hats. It's unbelievable. I think this is the best hat game I've seen in any movie ever.
If I didn't put it in my bolo, I probably would have chosen jackets. So I think we have very impressive hats, jackets, and I'm going to just honorable mention some gloves. So great attire.
Absolutely.
The hats for sure stand out.
Yeah, this movie made me want to have a better winter hat game.
At least a winter hat game would be nice.
Yeah, seriously.
I just go with the baseball cap style as I have on right now. But
yeah, I pretty much have one winter hat. It is just my winter hat.
Have you tried anything outside of a baseball cap before?
I have like a winter hat, like it's like a wool hat.
Yeah, wool hat, but I mean something.
Oh no, I haven't.
Yeah,
but I think I'd like to.
I think I'd like to too. I think you might be able to be a great hat guy in your older years.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
That's a good pick. On to the third round.
My third round pick is I just love when people are riding things that are meant for outdoors indoors.
Mm-hmm.
So like here we get the motorcycle, Wesley Snipes riding the motorcycle in the, through the train station, on the train tracks. Anytime you're in any kind of movie where you're doing something like that, you're like riding a motorcycle through the mall or like on a horse inside.
With like True Lies, where like you're in the horse inside. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Anything like that is just, it's such a movie thing because it's so unlike anything you ever see in real life. But I feel like it's just like, it's like we were talking about the budget for this, that they're probably like, how else can we amp this scene up? Let's put him on a motorcycle. I love that idea of just like, how can we make this even more exciting?
And he was doing all that indoor stuff, and then he got to the escalator, and he's like, ugh, I'm still going to do it, but this is going to be difficult.
Yep.
You like how the motorcycle was able to sneak up on the train in the tunnel, too.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to go with riding things that are meant for outdoors, indoors.
I think that's great. It's just like you get the same shock from the bystanders as you did in like War of the Worlds when the world is getting taken over by aliens. And people are like, oh, it could be because there's a motorcycle inside that's just blowing their mind. They have no idea what's happening. That's a great pick. And I'm not going to take this one. I'm just going to piggyback a little bit. But on that motorcycle was Wesley Snipes. He loves motorcycles. I was almost going to draft Wesley Snipes on motorcycles in movies. He had a motorcycle chase in 1994 with the cops that was like over 120 miles an hour. He was getting chased. I think it was in like Jupiter, Florida. And he eventually got like tossed from his motorcycle. But it's not a coincidence that most of his movies, Blade, this, Drop Zone, Passenger 57, there's always motorcycles. Wesley loves motorcycles. Mm-hmm. I love when a personal like aspect of someone's life is like, hey man, can we just toss a motorcycle in this?
Yeah,
like, how is Blade going to get around? I don't know. Could we do motorcycles? Sure. Now, like, it's great. But
and you can tell that he is very comfortable on a motorcycle. He can handle that thing right.
He can crash through a chain link fence better than most actors I've seen on a motorcycle.
Oh yeah, like it's nothing.
Nothing. That's good. My third pick, I got to take the torch and that whole like end of the torch sequence. Like I thought the torch was such a cool name, number one. Very evil character, number two.
Exceptionally evil, yes.
So evil. He's not just like they don't like give you the soundtrack to show you, I think, a little bit to impress upon you a little bit like how evil he is, but he's taking the money and he's burning people alive just for the fun. And he's so obsessed with fire, like he is half burnt himself before he even dies at the end. It was the karma involved of him setting himself on fire and how he dies before the train, and just his like that actor, I forget his name, but Chris Cooper, so good in American Beauty, and he just has that like he could have his own movie alone with that character. So I got to take that whole torch. I read some reviews that people didn't like. The big part of the movie happened too early, right? Because they got they were seeking out, and then it became about like the money train after. But I actually kind of like how there's multiple bad guys, there's multiple goals, there's multiple peaks and valleys in this movie. So I got to go with the torch in that whole sequence.
Yeah, and I will come back to this at another segment later on, but to go into how evil that guy really was, there were also, I don't know if you saw this, there was sort of like what may have been a copycat incident in New York after this movie came out.
Yeah, yep.
There was an individual sort of basically did the same thing, and it ended up. I mean, it sort of seems like a cover up a little bit, but they were very adamant that this was actually not a copycat. That the individual who did this had never seen the movie, was not basing their
just too much in these articles that I read.
100%. I was. That's exactly what I was about to say. That the fact that they had to come out with that statement felt very much of okay, like that you're now showing us what's really going on here by denying it.
It's so funny pre-internet too, like how you don't let this idea get out. It's going to infect everyone. Like nobody should know that they could have this tube of gasoline shoot out from them to light on fire this clerk. Like it's such a funny thing that you'd have to be aware of it. So much so that Bob Dole came out and said to boycott this film because of that incident. Thought it was a dangerous thing.
That's crazy.
Yeah. My sleeper pick here, huh? Well, this is actually pretty easy. In the beginning of the movie, there was a guy sitting on the stairs who was just singing like the blues or just kind of like singing what he sees. Mm-hmm. And someone gave him a tip and he changed what he was singing. And one of my favorite things is street and subway singers who sing about what they see and respond in their song. I used to work on Newbury Street in Boston at night, and there was this guy who was near like the CVS, and he would just sing about the stuff people were wearing and doing as they crossed the street. He'd sit on his like bucket and be like, "Lady in purple crossing the street, swinging her arms pretty big." Like I just want to give him money all the time. And there was a guy in the beginning of this who just does that. And so anyone who's singing about what's in front of them in a city, I'm a huge fan of.
I like that. That's a great pick. That's such a detail pick, and I like that. It ties into your experience too.
Yep.
I'm going to go for my sleeper pick here. So I've always sort of wanted to be a robe guy, like a guy that can wear a bathrobe. And my problem is I never, and I've owned a bathrobe, but I never know when you're really supposed to wear a bathrobe. Like I bought a bathrobe and then I'm like, okay, well, is it when I get out of the shower? But then I'm like, I'm just getting dressed after the shower. So I never really have the time where I'm like, oh, now is the time to put on a robe. But here in this movie, Wesley Snipes puts on a robe, and it's in fact the perfect time to wear a robe. He has to get up out of bed and quickly go outside, and it's cold. And I was just like, wow, that is when you wear a robe.
It has a function.
Yes.
And oftentimes I thought robes were just like, not vanity, but just something you put on as a choice. But you're right. The functionality of that robe in that moment, that's why you have a robe.
That's why you have a robe. It was perfect. It was just an aha moment. Like, of course, that's when you wear a robe.
That's why. You don't have to just wear it around the house just because you bought it 8 months ago. You have an actual purpose for it.
Yeah. So that's what I'm going with. And I do, once again, for back-to-back weeks, have an anti-pick as well.
Nice. Oh, I forgot to prepare mine, but I can't wait to hear yours.
And it was a bolo here. So when they're chasing the torch and they're about to hit Central Park, they're right outside the plaza, and Woody Harrelson's character fires that gun as the warning shot up in the sky. I feel like I'm always concerned about this, and no one ever seems to be, but that bullet is going to come back down. And it's going to come back down with the same speed that it has when it's fired. So, like, is no one ever concerned about that?
No, like, it goes far. It's a NIMBY thing, I think. It goes far enough away because it's going to go far.
For sure.
It's impossible to hold it at that 90-degree angle and have it come back down. So it's going to be somebody else's problem.
And I'm just thinking, particularly in a place like New York City.
Yeah,
like even if it's going pretty far off, that's one of the most densely populated places in the entire world. So odds are that's going to come down and just like go right into someone's brain. You know what I mean? Like maybe just think a little bit.
Every time you release a gun into the air, there's a chance that it lands and kills someone.
Yeah. You just shot somebody. It's going to take a little while, but you just shot somebody.
But weirdly on New Year's Eve, there's lots of people shooting in the air, so we can't pin it on you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's my anti-pick. Just
that's a good one. Yep. All right. Moving on to our superlative, which is favorite Robert Blake line. But what's his name in the movie? Patterson?
Donald Patterson.
Donald Patterson.
Yeah, this is one of these ones that sometimes we struggle a little bit on what the superlative should be, but this one was so obvious because his lines, I know we touched on this a little bit, but his lines are just so brilliant that it was like, how can we not spend some time talking about this?
Brilliant and evil and strange, and they don't really make sense.
It's amazing.
The grasp on the human body doesn't seem to always make sense to Robert Blake at all.
Yeah, it's amazing, and I did love for our listeners, definitely go out. Someone did compile all of his lines from the movie on YouTube, so you can just rewatch just his lines. So definitely seek that out.
You sent me that, and I started playing that like a couple hours ago when we were making dinner with my son, and my wife's like, "Oh, you're doing some slept on cinema stuff." I'm like, "No, this is saving me time. Like this is all the lines from him from the movie for our superlative." It didn't seem to resonate.
He's not for everyone.
No, not for very few people, especially now. Yeah.
All right, you want to go first? You want me to go?
I'll go first, but maybe we can make sure to use some honorable mentions.
We're definitely going to have some honorable mentions here
because mine is a little. Yeah, I'm going to go with a little bit of a sleeper pick here, which is for a podcast. But the way he says "Officer Santiago," and he does that like little like blowfish face.
Mm-hmm.
I know all the other ones were like overtly awful, but this is just like he's coming out with there's a white person, there's a black person, and there's a Latino woman, already using the wrong form, and then he just does the Santiago. Like he's just awful.
He's terrible.
So awful. Just that sort of thing. I don't know. I have to go with that line, but
yeah,
it's really, really hard because I can't wait to hear what you pick and what our honorable mentions are because it's like they're all the same level of enjoyment for me. They're just bonkers.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great pick because it shows that his purpose is really just to make people uncomfortable, and he has all these tools at his disposal. And this one he knows is making this woman uncomfortable, probably at a time when the police force certainly didn't have a lot of women officers, and I'm guessing also didn't have a lot of Latino officers. So he's like using this as a wedge to create, separate her from him and everyone else, and it's cutting. So that's a great pick. But for me, there was one, the cream of the crop here, and it's just absolutely amazing. So he's talking to Woody Harrelson's character, and he says, "You're right on the edge. You're a wreck looking for some place to happen. I'll be there, and I'll fuck you dead." And this just start to finish, it goes so many different places in one line. Like it starts off, it's almost sort of poetic. I know we talked about how I'd been into noir movies for a while, but it sort of has that film noir-esque cadence to it of like, you're right on the edge. You're a wreck looking for some place to happen. Like that is a poetic line that I think
before. And that's really impactful. That was really good.
It really is. It's visual. You can tell exactly what he's talking about. And it feels like almost a line from another era. And then he takes this amazing sort of beautiful line that's sort of composed and just totally goes about face and says, "And I'll fuck you dead." What?
Yeah, that's what his character, like, I can't wait to get to the honorable mentions too, but like his swearing and how he swore is just weird. And I loved when he said that, like me and my wife were both kind of like, "F you dead." Like, what does that mean? And then the next scene is them, Woody and Wesley, like having the banter about like, what, like have sex with us before we're dead, after we're dead. Oh, that sounds like it'll hurt. That's a pain in the butt. Like, whatever. They had fun with it because they know that was such a wild thing to say. He says so many wild things, but rarely do they have Wesley and Woody talk about what he said. They just kind of usually absorb it. But in this line, they had to talk about it because it was nuts.
It was bonkers.
Can we do another couple?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have to.
I loved when after Woody had the shot in the warning shot or whatever, and he's sitting against the beam underneath in the train station. He goes, you have to basically ask for my help, but he puts his finger on his head and says, "From there," his index finger. Like he's just lording over him and making him say it from down below. He knows what he's doing. I thought that was awesome.
Another crass line coming up here. "Take a bite of me. You'll be licking your asshole for a month to get the taste out of your mouth."
Phenomenal.
Like, What a line.
It makes you think so much, like, wait, so that means that, okay, I'm licking my ass now? Like, it's so good. All right, we'll go crass again here. Rip a hole in your throat, suck your heart out, and eat it. That's what he threatened to do to them, is rip a hole in your throat, suck your heart out, and eat it. Like, as if we're these, like, I don't know, these, like, characters that we draw and everything's, like, connected. But that's not really how the human anatomy works, I don't think.
Yeah, I'm not a doctor, but I don't think that's how it works.
I can't use your heart like your body as a bong to pull out your heart.
Yep. I also, this is just a simple one, but I just liked when he said, nothing stops the money train.
Yeah.
Just like that. It was early on in the movie, and it was just like a great little thing. I also just loved in this movie how they call it the money train. Like, it's not the armored cash vehicle or the revenue armory. Or it's just like, this is what like a child would call it, but that's exactly what it should be called. Like, it is the money train.
I think it's also what all the cops would call it. All the transit cops and everyone else. Wow, that's a money train. No one's going to call it like the official authority. It's just that's a money train.
Yep.
But man, was Robert Blake good in this? He's like, this movie almost deserved to be like a movie in the pantheon of like famous movies, because I know he's a terrifying figure in real life, but whatever. He was terrifying in this role as like the train guy.
Yeah.
Like, he just did so well.
And I love that his character too, because it was sort of like one of these tiny little slices of life. And yet it goes to show that like in every job or everything that you have, there's always that one guy who just takes everything so unbelievably seriously and takes it like this, whatever it is, it's the one guy or one woman, it's his or her just personal fiefdom, and everything has to go the way they say, and everything has to go exactly as they say, and it's like a personal affront to them if anything goes awry. That person shows up in every walk of life.
And Woody, even before they became on the downside, that's so good. Even Woody and Wesley, like, they could feel that, and they were just like messing with him early on. Yep. Before they were even really in trouble, they were just needling that because they knew how much he cared about his money train.
Yep.
Yes, your people, your money. Yeah, we got it. Yeah. What is that money train? I love that little model train. It's so funny when you find somebody that latches on to something like that, and you're like, I can mess with them a little bit.
You have to.
All right, that's last one. If you do, we will tangle ass and you will lose. That doesn't make any sense. Tangle ass, but now I want to use it more often.
Yep.
Yeah, someone gets mad at me while driving and they pull over. I'm like, hey, if you want to tangle ass, you'll lose. I feel like that'll get me out of the situation.
This character also, I thought, had one of our favorite things as well. Great comeuppance. He really gets hit.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so good. And plus the little arrest from J-Lo, too. She was fun.
Oh, the fist pump she gives them at the end is amazing.
And then that's right when the whispered I love you comes from Wesley.
Yeah. Brilliant.
Yeah, pretty good. One change to be a blockbuster. What do you got?
All right. So this one, you may take some offense based on your draft, but in some sense, this movie was like at least 3 or 4 different movies wrapped into one. And I think if we take out the torch entirely, I think that actually makes this a little bit of a tighter film, gives it a little bit better runtime. And I think as you mentioned in some of the reviews, people were like, there was sort of this like climax in the middle of the movie. For me, it almost felt like if you have like a network TV show and you have 20, 25 episodes, and in the middle of the season, you have these like kind of random little tangential story arcs that don't really need to fit in to drive the overall story. To me, that sort of felt like the torch, like that. Yeah, it showed us some things, but we didn't really need this here. And then also for me watching this now in 2023, I'm watching it in my mind with Chris Cooper, the famous movie star. As you said, like he kind of blew up as a star after this film. We had American Beauty in '99. He had Adaptation in 2002, which he was great in. The Born Identity, Born Soprano. He became a star after this. And so when I saw him in Money Train, sort of early on in the first part of the movie, I sort of expected him to have a really central role in the entire movie because he's a big movie star. But you don't think that, okay, back in 1995, he was totally under the radar, like not a star at all. So it made more sense. So maybe watching it then, you wouldn't have been thrown as much. But as a viewer now, I was just like, I was thrown by how quickly it ended up getting resolved. And I thought that they could just probably take that whole thing out.
I don't think you're wrong. If you don't have the mindset that we have with movies basically being like, everything's great and this is awesome. Like a lot of times it's kind of like how we get perceived. But I definitely understand the point of like, movies are supposed to have a climax and people are used to that. Like, here's this evil villain we've been talking about this entire movie. Oh, we got him. Oh, now there's 45 minutes left of the movie for us to come up with something else that is really important. And I get how it can kind of fall flat because you already had this big climax. Now you find about this new thing like, okay, I guess we'll rob the money train that we've kind of been hinting at because Woody has $20,000, $25,000, or $15,000 debt.
Yep.
So he needs to get $500,000 and he's very emotional about his standing between him and his brother, whatever. But it does, I completely understand. I think that's what a lot of the reviews said. Like we got geared up basically for this climax with this torch and then it ended. So maybe take out the torch if that's not what you're committed to and just have it about the money train.
Yep.
Yeah, that's good. I get that for sure. But I do love the torch. One change of blockbuster for me is pretty easy. It's Woody's hair. I don't think Woody Harrelson should go for the long hair. He was struggling a little bit in White Man Can't Jump. I can't believe he thought 4 years later he can come out with a long hair and be completely fine.
Yeah. I guess that's right. Maybe that was just a look back then. I don't really remember, but yeah, it was not a wise decision.
The other part would be, I think they could probably cut the budget to be a blockbuster for them. Maybe not spend almost $70 million on a buddy cop train movie and maybe use a location instead of building this whole train station and train and all this stuff. Because they must have thought it was going to be this like huge.
So I'm sure they thought they were going to
money on this,
like $400 million on this thing.
Yeah, exactly. It just wasn't that. So maybe cut the costs and cut Woody's hair.
Yep, I like it. Spinoffs. So I think I might get back in your good graces here, and I've never had this. Yeah. My spinoff, let's just have a Torch movie.
You took mine.
It's so obvious, especially with Chris Cooper becoming this huge star. This character was absolutely amazing, and part of what I didn't like about it in this movie was that we didn't get enough time with him. Yeah. So give me the whole Torch story. Give me the Torch. Give me more Woody. Give me more Wesley. Give me the whole thing. Make it a whole movie. Don't shortchange me with this.
Even go to like how things were. Like he's been the Torch for a while. When it first happened, they go the Torch as if they knew about it. So he's been torching people for a while.
Yes, exactly.
He's got a whole background of being burnt up. Like we have a whole story. We just saw the end of his illustrious, horrible career of killing people, right? Like, and why don't we get to see the whole thing from the beginning?
Show me the whole thing.
Why does he like to burn people so much? Why is he so burned? Are those burns from when he was a kid and now he takes it out on poor workers of the New York Metro?
Yeah, I mean, something insane is there because anytime you're burning somebody, like that's one of the most insane things you can do, period. Yeah. So there's a crazy backstory.
I wonder if like burning or drowning, like you're really going in it for the pain and anguish of the person. You're not just
Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, you took mine, so that's really good. I would love to have and the name of the movie is The Torch.
It's so obvious. It writes itself.
So good. He could probably still do it now.
Why not?
Yeah. So my spin-off idea is Passenger 57. I think this is a prequel. His name is John in both. He meets the girl. I think that they showed Orlando, but it could have been New York in Passenger 57 when his wife got killed. His wife could have been J-Lo. She was similar looking. Maybe they couldn't get her for that. He had to leave there and do his Passenger 57 thing after she died. So I think he has all the skills. Like that part when he went into the strip club and just was like, "Oh, these gangsters threaten my life, so I'm gonna like John Wick style go in there."
Oh, yeah.
I almost picked that because it was just like
I can't believe we're only talking about that now.
That was incredible. Like, that was such a weird part of the movie. That was such an action movie, John Wick thing. That was
Yep.
the rest of the movie, like you said before, is like kind of grounded in reality. But that part when he goes in there and just shows off all of his skills, he has all those skills when he's in Passenger 57, just messing up some of the baddest terrorists in the world. So I think these two may play in the same universe.
I definitely, that makes a lot of sense to me. That makes a lot of sense. I like that. So I guess this is the first time that our spinoff actually, someone made it.
Yeah. 4 years before.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So we got any notes we didn't get to? I got a couple.
Let's see. Yeah, what you got?
Who's the best drunk actor or actress in this movie?
I mean, I feel like I like Woody the best. I'm going to say
It's not even close.
Great. Yeah.
I think Wesley's overacting. I think Woody's just like tapping into nights that he's had.
Yes, he felt
Danny
very
just
real.
being like, "What's the problem?" Like, I don't think J-Lo did that great with that, but Woody crushed the drunk acting. I did like his description. Like, yeah, he's looking like he's trying to take a piss, but he forgot how. Like, that's my movie. Here's another question. The $15,000 that Wesley gave Woody was after he had been like, all right, I'm going to get with J-Lo here. Do you think part of the reason he gave that $15,000 was for his conscience? Like, he was buying good graces of Woody there?
Oh, I'm sure. If it wasn't outright, I'm sure there's a part of him that sort of felt bad about doing that to his brother, and was like, well, I'll balance that out by being really generous with him here. So definitely.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I liked when it's funny when like they're basically brothers. So like saying really, really mean things to your brother isn't even that big a deal. So like when they were being held up by Barksdale, Woody said to Wesley, "I'll shoot you in your good eye." Like, I think Wesley in real life has one eyelid that's a little bit lower.
Yep.
So, like, he's just real life messing with him there.
That's another scene that was absolutely amazing that easily could have gone in a first or second round pick. That scene was awesome.
It's just like changing, like, oh, wait, you can act crazy on the people robbing you and then they run away? That sounds great.
It's great, too. It was a great scene in itself, but then you also layer on top of it that you end up with this, like the D'Angelo Barksdale character. It's great when you have an awesome scene and then an actor in that scene then goes on to become famous. So that it makes it an even more compelling scene when you're watching it later.
Yep. I actually just watched Waterboy. I completely forgot that he was the kicker in that.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
It's so weird. Yeah. He's been around forever. It looks the same age.
Another one I had was just a great credits song.
So good.
The Shaggy song "Train Is Coming." It's like
Train Is Coming. Intro and exit. Yep. It's right on the nose, but I want to be on the nose.
Yes, this type of movie you want that.
Let's see what else we got. My last one here. I joked about it a little bit before, but you're messing with me at the embryo stage of a bender. I thought
that's a brilliant line.
Hilarious line. Like, you're up to. You're fine with it. You just need everyone else to let you get there.
Yep, I had that written down too. It was brilliant.
It's like, I'll clean that up later. Like, I'm still here. I know I'm being ridiculous. I'll clean this up, but I am starting a bender. All right, that was awesome.
That was great.
What are we getting to next episode?
Next episode, we have our it's another Intern's Choice episode. Yeah. So pumped to get into that. And we are what are we doing? We're doing the live action Scooby-Doo, right?
Right, with the guy from Scream.
Exactly. So I've never seen this, but I was a huge Scooby-Doo fan as a child. So I remember being in elementary school and actually getting into a fight with another kid over who watched more Scooby-Doo. So that's the kind of level I'm on.
Do you still think you did more than he did?
Oh, I know I did.
I too haven't seen it. I was also a big Scooby-Doo kid. I didn't get any arguments with anyone about my Scooby-Doo fandom, but I did really enjoy it. So I'm really looking forward to this. Plus, our intern is Kai is the best, so I can't wait to be on here with him to do that movie.
Yeah, I can't wait to get him back on the show. He's great, huge movie fan, insightful as always in our drafts as well. So can't wait to get that going.
Yeah, that'll be great. This was awesome, and we'll see you next time.
Later.
Later.